swear to God, I don't pretend to be a nerd because it gets you all the chicks. That is not what's going on here. I'm not pretending. I'm not even gonna say that living off of YouTube, the work I do now is much easier than the work I used to do sitting on a desk. It's not easier, but it's much funner. It's a mix of random luck and a crapshoot. Every now and then I want to sit down and...
That's the scientific answer we're looking for.
Yeah.
How to be successful on YouTube.
Be lucky.
Just throw your dice into the casino.
I never sat down to think about it, but now more than a few people are going to be mad at me for saying this, but I do believe the Magic community in Brazil
Elba, tell me about your YouTube channel. What's the name and what is the meaning behind it for those of us who are not Portuguese speakers?
Okay, my channel is called Fazendo Nerdice. It's not so easy to translate directly into English, but it's doing nerdy stuff. Doing things that nerds like. Originally, it wasn't a channel, it started as a blog. And I wrote about all nerdy stuff I liked. I expected to write about magic and comics and video games and board games and cartoons and movies and whatever. And, well, turns out people don't like reading that much. I started doing videos, and the least watched videos, it was something like the least watched videos on the channel had more views than the entirety of the blog. So, and come on, keeping a blog up is much more work than a YouTube channel. So I kind of just gave up on that and started focusing on videos. The reason why I started videos is a fun one. For decades, we've had set reviews when Magic sets come out. And here in Brazil, we have a very large MTG site, large for the country standards, Liga Magic, and people would write down their set reviews on this website. And, regularly, it's like a forum. So anyone could come up and write. And I had this very bright idea, it's kind of annoying to have to sit down and read this for 3 hours. I'm going to do a podcast. A set review as a podcast. And I remember this was back in 2014, 2015. Dragons of Tarkir was, Guns of Tarkir was the podcast. And I remember I was sitting down with my friends and we were adjusting the headphones. And then I mentioned, you know what's funny? What? This is a 360 card set. So if we spend 1 minute speaking about each card, it's going to be like a 6-hour long podcast. And we could not spend 1 minute speaking about each card because when you just, this was back in the days when podcasts were just audio. So I had to describe the card. You had to say the cost and the name.
The game text, you have to read it out.
Oh, wow, this art is amazing. Well, you got to describe the art to the listeners. And then I ended up stuck with that mammoth. And you got to do it fast, right? There's no point in doing a set review 2 weeks after the set is done. So I released that monstrous podcast, and I figured next time I do a set review, I'm going to do video. Just put the card image on the screen, and I'll talk about it, and that'll be that. So that's how the channel began. The set reviews were in video form, and I would write about whatever I wanted in text. People enjoyed the videos much more than they enjoyed the texts, and so I started doing everything in video, and nowadays I do 3 videos a week, moving on to 4, and I make it 1 video about card games, 1 video about whatever the hell I feel like, 1 short video about current events, and 1 gameplay. Well, the 1 gameplay isn't still set in stone, but I try.
I know that you're a successful YouTuber now. You've got a massive channel. You also have a secondary channel. You're doing all the right YouTube things. But hearing you talk about starting the YouTube channel, is there a part of you that's a little bit wondering what would have happened if Elba just kept writing, or if you stuck to that as opposed to growing on YouTube?
I never sat down to think about it, but when I do, I mean, if I look right now at the country's biggest journalists and writers, they are all moving to audio and video. I don't want to say that writing is a dead art. That's not what I'm saying at all. There is a very specific pleasure in sitting down with a good mug of coffee and your favorite book in a cozy day. But the heyday of the blog is already behind us. So if the big names of professional writing that I grew up with gave up on the written word and are moving to audio, to video and podcasts, who am I to? I mean, what am I to gain, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm better than them. I don't think I could outdo them.
Just the
Uh,
world is going in that direction, so it's
yep,
very difficult to go against that direction, right?
exactly. Maybe it's worth it, but it's way too much work.
Yeah. But having said that, there must be an element of writing and scripting in your videos, right? Because I've watched
Yeah.
some of them, and I mean, there are some that are more on the side of, how do I put it? It's less prepared because it's an interview or it's gameplay.
Mhm.
But there are also other ones where you're talking about a specific topic that involves actually preparing the video and,
Yep.
I assume, writing it out, right?
Yep. I'm a psychologist by trade. I'm a licensed psychologist in Brazil, and I enjoy academic research. You know, uh, it's funny because when I'm talking about this in Portuguese, most people don't know the channels, but here they will. People like Veritasium or the Green Brothers or Vsauce was a huge influence on how I consume content on the internet. So I love this kind of stuff that you take a seemingly random thing and you explore it and extrapolate in it and you explain it, and I like that very very much. So I like doing the research and I like presenting the research. Now I might not have the editing chops to do the whole animation thing like Kurgesats does, but that's kind of the stuff I like. So at the same time, again, I am not the super editor. I have an editor, and he's not that super duper editor. We're no TV show here, right? I like doing this long form because it's kind of what I do. Presenting, going up on explaining things to people, or one. Even though I'm a psychologist, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I don't have patients or clinic. I used to work in HR, industrial psychology, and having long arguments and having to explain your point and having to convince and I have tons of experience on that, and I like it. It's kind of like presenting a paper or a TED talk. I have tons of fun doing it, and it just so happens that it's much easier to write and edit. So that's that's the way it goes.
What are some things that having a background in psychology allows you to do as a YouTuber? You know, you mentioned some of those
Mhm.
influences, and obviously they're very strong in using things to, not manipulative, but I would say they're very
Mhm.
good at understanding their audience and how to speak to their audience. Is that something that your psychology background allows you to do? Because I feel like in your videos, you're able to, I can't really fully describe it, which is why I'm
Mhm.
asking. There's
Mhm.
something you can do to kind of connect with the viewer, right? Is that just practice, experience, or is it coming from your background, or
Um,
is it something else?
it is experience, but it's not psychology. It's oratory. Is that how you say that in English?
Sure,
It
like oration, like just public speaking or
exactly
presenting
public
it.
speaking. So I do know things like I could just sit down here and speak in a very monotone way, and the video would get very boring after very little time. But I know that if I stand up, I prop my shoulders, I use my hands, I
Yeah,
move, I
you have
speak,
some
I point,
gestures.
I gesticulate, I make faces. I know that holds attention. And that is not psychology. That is public speaking. Um, but my background in psychology, it helps more with themes. For example, we are right now in Brazil. We're living through a um, input. There are a ton of casinos, of international online casinos showing up in Brazil because they figured out a legal loop. Casinos are illegal in Brazil, and online casinos figured out a loophole so that they can operate here, and it's going on. And I'm not super fond of casinos. And every now and then someone would ask, "Oh, why don't you like casinos? Why don't you like casinos? Why don't you?" Well, the answer is a 40-minute video essay on the psychological mechanism of vice and how that preys on people with underlying mental issues. So I the psychology helps on the writing and the putting to words and making my point of view about things, but I don't think being a psychologist, everyone assumes I'm using some kind of psychological trick while speaking to them all the time. No, 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 no. I'm not that much.
You're just a
Maybe
normal
I
guy
could exist.
who
Yeah,
knows how to YouTube.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I think that's really fascinating because people often assume the best or worst of other people, or they assume other people have superpowers
Mhm.
that somehow they're all taking advantage of me, or I don't know, maybe sometimes the inverse is true too, where I just feel like I'm better than everybody else, right? I'm superior to everybody else, but everybody's inferior. But yeah, I think for YouTube, it is a lot of just repetition and practice. And can you go back and think about when you first started? You mentioned before the recording, you started with some very low quality equipment. You were just filming yourself. You didn't have yourself so
Mhm.
developed. You didn't have the nice background, the nice chair. What are some things that maybe you could go back and tell yourself if you were just beginning as a YouTuber? Are there things that are there lessons that maybe someone listening to this might be able to learn from you?
Well, as far as doing this, I think the biggest lesson, the most striking lesson to me was don't save on your microphone. Get Start with the good stuff. Um, when I was in, I know we were speaking before recording about our microphones, but we're fine. Electronics in Brazil are very expensive. The import taxes are very high, and it is expensive. So I started up. When I started, I didn't even have a headset microphone from a cell phone. My hack was to have my cell phone on the table near me so it would catch my voice, and it was not good at all. So I figured, oh, I'm gonna buy a cheap microphone, and then I saw that the good microphone was $1,000. Okay, I'm going to say bucks because nobody cares about exchange rate. So the
Sure.
good
Let's just
microphone
convert it
was a
to
thousand
USD.
bucks,
Yeah.
and then I figured I'm gonna get a $50 microphone. That's gonna be good enough. It wasn't. I'm gonna get $100 microphone, and then it died on me mid recording. I'm gonna get me a $300 microphone. It wasn't any better than the $50 one. And then I realized I was getting ready to try the $500 microphone, and then I realized, hold up, I spent 300, and before that I spent 100, before that I spent 50, and I'm gonna spend 500, and that's all because I refused to spend $1,000 on the good microphone. I'm gonna get a good microphone. What the hell am I doing here? Because audio is more important than video, especially to this sort of content. It's the same as you do. Like the focus here is what we're talking, it's not what we're showing. If we were showing something, I'm sure you can put a big graphic and you can look up a 4K resolution cast graphic and just put it on the screen, and that's good enough. Many people are going to listen to what we're doing while washing dishes or cleaning the house or whatever. They're listening, they're not looking at it. So the microphone is so much more important. And this isn't the just my content or your content. It's usually what nerdy content is, right? Except for gameplays and unboxings, and this is about Magic, of course. Except for gameplays and unboxings, if you're talking about the game, if you're talking about strategy or history of the game or trivia about the game, yeah, that's all um, audio information. That's all stuff you're going to listen. So don't worry about getting like, I have I have a nice camera. It's good to have a nice camera. I'm very proud of my nice camera. It came years after the nice microphone because that's the and I fought my bank account tooth and nail because I really didn't want to spend money on the night. Come on, sound isn't sexy. The depth of field, the blurry background, the hair light, that's sexy. That looks good. Well, it doesn't matter if it looks good and it sounds like it's being recorded on a moving train. Nobody gonna watch you.
What about the content itself? There must have been something that you figured out to get the traction on your videos, because I think, first of all, I agree with what you said. I think oftentimes people fall into this trap where they actually, I think you are saying, get something good to start with, so you don't have to waste more money later trying to upgrade it again, right?
Buy
Because you
nice
said
or buy twice.
yes. But what about the content itself? What do you have to do as a YouTuber in your case to get
Oh,
that audience growth? You know, like what are the things that you're doing right there?
just as I was starting, I heard the secret of becoming rich on YouTube. And it's a secret with 100% success rate. Everyone who did it,
Amazing.
they're filthy rich. And the secret is you start in 2009 and you post a weekly video no matter what. Boom,
All
that's it,
right.
you're rich.
That's it. All right. I
That,
need a
that,
time machine, go back to
yeah, no.
2009,
How are you gonna do that?
early
That's your
adopter.
problem. But everyone who did this and they started in 2009 and they've been posting weekly videos, they're doing very well for themselves.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's the regularity. You don't have to do weekly videos. Maybe you do every 2 weeks. Maybe you do every month. When I started the channel, as I said, the channel was just for Magic set release, so I would do one video every 3 months whenever a new set came out. But by being regular, you're not only does the algorithm of YouTube rewards regularity, viewers do that as well. I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, listen, I don't know why the YouTube stopped showing me your videos, even though I'm subscribed, but I know you release videos every Tuesday, and today's Tuesday, so I went into your channel to look for it." And so you get both the technological benefits of regularity, even though the YouTube algorithm wishes you would post daily or at most weekly. Not only you get the technological advantage of the algorithm helping you, you make your audience expect your content and they're going to look for it if they're interested. And I've seen many people start and end their channels because, oh, this week is not very good. I guess I'll post next week. Oh,
Yeah.
but next week my
I'm busy this
mother-in-law
week.
came over. I'm gonna leave it to next week. And then you keep postponing it and you keep postponing it until you forget it and it's gone. I think that's the number one thing as a content producer. The hack that no one does is, listen, Sonny, maybe you're sick and maybe you're sad and maybe you're bad, but if you're going to make this work, you gotta stick to your schedule. And this is not to say that you cannot be too sick to post, but either that should be an exception, or the sickness and not your channel should be your main concern right now.
Absolutely. It's about priorities. It sounds like at some point, did you figure this out super early to be consistent and just be very dedicated? I'm wondering about your story in terms of when did you decide to take this super seriously?
I'm kind of an intense guy, so I like taking things and going all out. Um, but I started YouTube wasn't even for myself. I was HR for a car company. I just realized it makes it's not good to anyone to give out its name because we're going to talk more about them. And a friend of mine came out and said, "Hey, we're starting a YouTube channel. Just friends from 10 years ago, from teenage years. We're starting a YouTube channel, and I'm gonna talk about arcade games and Fulaninho, and this guy's gonna talk about anime, and this guy's going to talk about video games. And we really wanted to have a segment on Magic the Gathering. Do you want to help us and write a script and stuff?" So I started out helping them, and I was the Magic guy on this channel, which wasn't mine. And after, I don't know, at the time I was too busy. I worked in another city. I couldn't help, and then things in the job were started getting kind of flaky, and I like, oh, screw my job. You know what? I need something to get my mind off of it. Yo, is that offer still up for me to help with the YouTube channel? Sure, let's do it. And after, I don't know, 6 months, a year, little time after that, they decided to stop the channel. This was four people, including me. One of them got a scholarship in another state. One of them got a job in a different city. One of them, I didn't crash the car. I don't remember what happened, but stuff
Sure,
came up
just
on his
life
life
stuff.
and said, "This is not what I'm worried about. I'm not super caring about the channel anymore. I have another emergency to care." And then I was like taking care of a channel which wasn't mine, and it made no sense whatsoever. So you know what? Let's end this here. But then I was beaten by the beast, right? I was like, this is fun. This is a cool hobby. And then I started, you know what? I'll start doing weekly videos. I was working a very stressful job. I was single, so I started. You know what? On my Saturdays, I'm going to start doing videos. I taught myself how to record, how to edit. I did the thing, and it was that's what it was, a hobby. Eventually, it started paying money. This crazy thing about YouTube, that if you do good enough numbers, it's going to give you some money. It wasn't a ton of money, mind you. I had been recording just for funsies for like 3 or 4 years before I got the single red cent. But hey, I had a salary. I had my job, which paid the bills. So all the money that I got from YouTube was just my hobby money, which I reinvested into stuff for the channel. And in 2020, I used to work for Expedia. And man, I'm not too hyped up on international politics. I'm not sure what happened in 2020, that nobody wanted to travel anymore. I don't know. I guess there's some kind of rash or something, bed bugs.
Something
I don't
happened.
know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
don't remember.
I was responsible for HR in Expedia for Latin America. I was hired to take care of 1,500 employees, and by the end of 2020, we had like 80 employees. And I'm like, cool. And I'm looking at the employee list, and I'm like, cool. I know I'm paid to take care of 1,500 people. I have 80. Eventually, some higher up is going to see this, and that makes no financial sense. When I was fired from Expedia, this time the channel was like 70,000, 80,000 subscribers, something like that. And it was the YouTube paid something like 25% of what my salary was. So I figured, well, this is already, it's not enough for me to live off of, but it's also too much for me to be able to leave it out of a job interview. At the time, I was feeling like, my brother works at Facebook, so I can try to get, yeah, but you can't have a YouTube channel because they have Facebook gaming, and that's going to be a conflict of interest. Well, I have tons of friends who work at Amazon. Well, yeah, but I can't work at Amazon and have a YouTube channel because they have Twitch. Well, I know I have that good friend at Microsoft. I'm sure he. Nah, Microsoft got Mixer, and at all I had opportunities to get jobs at tech companies, but all of them would mean I would have to close down my channel, and I really liked my channel. So I came out and outright literally made a video saying, hey, explain this. Hey, listen, I lost my job, and if I get another job, looks like I'll have to close the channel, which I wouldn't like to. So here's my Apoia-se, which is the Brazilian Patreon. And if I can get near like 90% of here's how much I make as an HR manager, and if I can get like 90% of this, instead of giving up the channel to get another office job, I'll just give up the office job and focus on the channel. I gave myself a deadline. It was 2 or 3 months to reach that number, and I'm very happy to say I did. And ever since then, I'm like, okay, well, I promised the public that if they got this, I would give up the desk job and live off of YouTube. So I did. But until this time, until January 2021, YouTube was my hobby, and I didn't really care. I did what I want. Yeah, I do it weekly because I'm good with routine. So I already got used that every Saturday I do this. Well, it's no longer that. It's no longer the fun stuff I do because I like doing it. It's not my job, and I have supporters that paid for this, and I owe them this. So at this time is when I started. Well, okay, let's do this. It's no longer a thing I do on Saturdays. Now I try to schedule when's the best recording time. When I'm not recording, I'm either researching or writing. Um, as you've seen, some of my videos are kind of well, I gotta put something out fast, and it's funny because the most viewed video on my channel, which is I think it's like 3 times more viewed than the second most viewed video. It was a simple fact of, oh my god, it's Monday morning and I have to put a video out tomorrow because Tuesday is the video day. I have to put a video out tomorrow, but I have no time because my mom is over and I have this thing and I'm gonna record something real quick, and just off the top of my head, and that's the one that went viral. The stuff that I've put in 70 hours of research. Nah, that's nobody cares about that stuff. People like seeing
The most your most watched video is the one about Mike Long, right?
Yep, that's the one.
Basically, okay. So it was just a very last minute. I have a video that want to release to the next day, and
Yep,
let's just turn the camera on and talk about it.
exactly. I knew the story. I knew of Mike Long. I've been playing Magic since 1993, and I've always kept up with the game. I never really cared about the competitive side of the game. I've always very much enjoyed the community side of the game and knowing what's going on. And I would read the design articles and the interviews and why things are the way things are. And so I always enjoyed this very much. And I'm able to spout out magic trivia on command. So I gotta put out a video tomorrow. You know what? I've been meaning to do a video on Mike Long. Yeah, sure. Let's just turn the camera on and go. And it worked very
If you
very
look
well.
back on this video or maybe other videos you've done, how do you feel about the kind of negativity versus positivity when it comes to content? Because I have actually
Hmm.
personally felt this as well, is that when things are about negative topics or when the way it's presented is leaning more towards negativity, it sells, right? It gets more attention, it gets more views. And I always, even though I'm much smaller than you as a content creator, I always feel like there's a kind of tension inherent in doing something that I want to do versus doing something that I know the audience wants and I know they're asking for it. So this is kind of a complicated question, but I'm wondering how you feel about that dynamic of negativity and positivity when it comes to content.
There's a catharsis in watching people rage. You know, you see the things happening, and you're powerless to stop them because come on, Hasbro's a multi-billion corporation. There's absolutely zero things I can do to actually change what they're doing. And it would make no sense for me, a grown man, to I don't know, punch my pillow and jump on my bed and yell at the ceiling because I'm very mad at what Hasbro's doing. So when I watch someone else doing this stuff, when I watch someone else being angry and mad and spouting and going off the handle, that feels good. It's almost as good as if I was doing these things
Because
myself.
you're kind of living through them or they're manifesting or
Exactly. That is the mechanism throughout which watching people very angrily complain about something you're passionate about makes you feel better, because the opposite isn't true. If you love, let's say, well, anything, I don't know, Care Bears. If you love Care Bears and you watch someone else saying, "Oh my God, Care Bears are so cool. I really like Care Bears." Like, yeah, I agree with you, but
Like,
that's
so
about
what,
it.
right?
Maybe I wish I could be your friend, so we could get together and talk together about how cool Care Bears are. Disclaimer: I don't particularly care about Care Bears, but so this is the mechanism throughout which negative videos get a bigger response from the watchers, from the viewers, than positive videos. However, if you're always complaining, and if you're, it's kind of like view farming. If you try to just talk about the bad stuff and chase things to complain about, and you're always looking for the worst part of anything to put your finger at, you're going to attract a very unwanted crowd. I mean, at the end of the day, they're numbers, and YouTube pays you based on numbers. But you're going to surround yourself with a kind of viewership that, I can't speak for everyone, but I don't think anyone would like to be surrounded by that crowd. Always people who are very cynical and always expect the worst and always aren't look. So I've historically speaking, I try to make a balance. I try to speak nicely of companies when they do things that I believe are well done, and curse them out when I think that they've done bad. A couple years ago, I even had a even before the professor did a video making fun of all the times Magic was going to die. I made a top 10 times Magic died in Portugal, of course, but and just always making fun of
Magic
people
has
who are,
died more than 10 times.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh definitely, definitely.
Just
This was
resurrected.
2016 or something that I made this video. So people are always complaining anything that happens is gonna kill Magic now. Oh my God, planeswalkers are
Everything.
killing
Sky
Magic.
is falling.
Equipment is, everything is killing Magic. I could make a channel based solely on what's killing Magic and being the very big, bad, complaining guy who's always complaining about Magic. That would not that would give me good YouTube numbers, but not very good relations. I'm very proud to say that even though I've done plenty of videos complaining about Wizards and stuff they did. I've worked with Wizards before because my choice of words and the way I do and the way I complain, it is very clear that I am unsatisfied at what they're doing, but I'm not attacking the people and I'm not attacking the company. And this has bled over to other areas as well. There's a Galapagos is a game editor owned by Asmodee. It's a board game company here in Brazil, and they bring Asmodee games to Brazil. And I'm very proud to say that they've sent me more than a couple games to review. And the very first game they sent me to review, I didn't particularly enjoy. And well, I'm not going to lie about it, right? So I just make my video and saying, hey, listen, I don't, instead of just saying, oh my God, this game is garbage, anyone who plays this must smell like doo doo. No. Hey, here's the game. Me personally, I didn't like it because of this and this and this. However, there's this and this and this points, and maybe you like this more than you dislike this. Personally, I don't think I'm gonna play it again, but I can see why someone would. And I posted this video, and
It's constructive feedback,
exactly,
and it actually shows that you've thought about the trade-offs of the game design.
Precisely. If you're just complaining for the sake of complaining,
it's not just ranting.
Yeah, if you're just ranting how, oh my God, this is so bad, it ruined my life.
This is the worst thing ever, or like it's all caps, right? The worst board game ever. It's not. Right? There are some good things.
Then you burn that bridge, and even if you're very big on YouTube doesn't pay bills, dude. you gotta have sponsorships. You gotta have relations. You gotta and this expression in Portuguese that the world turns around. The person who made this game that you label the worst game ever, maybe 10 years from now, he's in the position to choose someone to hire, and you're trying to get the job, you're trying to get the contract. So he's going to remember you called his game the
Right.
worst game ever, and that's going to get you out right there.
Yeah.
So, um,
Play the long game, basically.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. You don't lie to your public. You gotta complain. You complain. You feel strongly about something. Don't hide your feelings. Just choose your words. I've had we had the community manager for Wizards in Brazil was this girl, and I've had people. I've seen YouTube channels in Portuguese respond to things like. Um, they delayed the release of Eldritch Moon was delayed in Brazil because of custom issues, and people were like, "Oh my God, the name of the girl. This girl is an absolute incompetent. How can she? How can the game be delayed here in Brazil? What is she doing?" I'm like, dude,
That's getting a little of a personal attack plus
well, yeah,
outside factors, maybe not in Wizards Hasbro control, and it's just putting the face of the villain on someone that should not be the face of the villain, right?
exactly, exactly, and that's how you make sure you because again she
It's a
was
fantasy card game. It's gonna come in a few days later, a few weeks later. It's
even
not the end of the world, right?
I always think that the cherry on top is the fact that she was not the commercial manager or the import manager. She was the community manager. So she
Mm.
would very clearly see the channels that would say stuff like that. And come 6 months later, come a year later, and there's this big new set, and they're going to invite the content creators for this event. And mysteriously, this very person would not be invited, and they would rage on
Mm.
Twitter. Oh my God, my channel's so big, and I'm not invited to the. Oh, only her friends are invited to all the big events. This is absurd. Like,
No, just
yeah,
only people that did not insult her personally and directly, right? I think that's
exactly,
fair.
exactly.
Hmm. It's a long road, and I'm wondering. You mentioned like in 2020, 2021, this
Mhm.
became a so-called job, right? Because
Yep.
you went full time.
Yeah.
Do you actually do your content other than doing your content more consistently or doing more of it 3 or 4 videos a week?
Mhm.
Do you do you treat this with a different mindset now that it is a job? For example, when we talk about the content itself, when we talk about cultivating negative or positive or putting research into things, how do you view Elba before and after that full-time job
Hmm.
transition?
I don't think the being the full time. Yeah, that's actually funny. Becoming full time did not affect this, but becoming full time happened because of this. I I do believe I do my best to be a responsible content creator. You know, not spreading fake news or not being um, not spreading lies, not directly attacking anyone, being very sure of what I'm putting out. And I try to make this very clear. Heck, there's been a recently they're discussing this new law on how internet is going to work in Brazil, and I was seeing stuff, people saying all absurd stuff about it. So I literally I made 3 videos. So I sat down with the full text of the law, saying, "Hey, let's read this and see what this is saying, and let's see what we think about this." And I very clearly listen. I'm not a lawyer. The reason why it was 3 videos because I did just one. I was like, this is way too short and way too simple. What am I missing? And then I learned there were I read a 10-page document and there were additional 110 pages which I was unaware of. So I do believe that the fact that I try to be responsible and I try to be clear with my public and I try to make sure to think before I speak is directly related to the fact that when I told my public, hey, listen, either I make a living off of this or this is going to be over. That's why they rose to this challenge, and that's why I have the very comfortable position of being able to live off of YouTube. Because don't get me wrong, um, I'm I'm not even gonna say that living off of YouTube, the work I do now is much easier than the work I used to do sitting on a desk at a big multinational corporation. It's not easier, but it's much funner.
it's more fulfilling for you personally, it
Oh
sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah. By any means, it's like recently my big issue was like, oh my god, the new Zelda game came out, and I gotta play it for a week straight, man, because gotta talk about it on the release window. And I was like, come on, that's not a real problem. It's not, but it is. You have deadlines. You have to pay attention. You have to know what you're putting out, and you have to think about what when you're putting out, and you have to make decisions. But, oh, but you're just playing video games. Yeah, but what games you play, and when you play, and how do you get the games, and how do you manage the connection with? So I have to say it's much easier to process payroll for 250 employees than it is to get a review key from Capcom. It's oh, but then you get a free game out of it. Not really. I get a game that I have to play
Put
and make
hours and hours of
but
work
hours and hours of
into.
work. I find it so funny. People say, "Oh, but the new Zelda game is 70 hours long," and yet 2 days after the game is released, people are expecting a full review. The game is 70 hours long. It's been released for 48 hours. How do you expect me to have a full review? I still have to eat and sleep and take a shower. Maybe I have to walk the dog, you know? So
Mhm.
yeah, it is much more fun to play Zelda for 2 full days than it is to process payroll. But it's still something you gotta do for 2 full days.
Well, that's going back to what I said, right? People, especially when they're not in the same role as you, they sometimes have expectations of you, or they put you in the best case scenario. Like they think, oh, being a content creator is glamorous, or being a YouTuber is all fun. Like it's amazing. You get to play Zelda for 70 hours, and then you can just write about it, and you don't have to. And they assume you can just do that like a machine every week. Like, hey Elba, when's the video for Zelda? Next week another game. When's the video for that game? Hey, next week another Magic set release. When's the review? I want it 2 days early. It's I don't think there's anything malicious about it. It's just that people. It's very difficult for people to have empathy or understanding for others, right?
Yep. I do believe this expectations comes from a place of innocence, not even ignorance, innocence. Uh, when Wizards started, they've been doing roughly one set per month, roughly. It's more like 2 months, but
For people like us who have been playing Magic for a long time, that still seems really crazy. Like we're in the Matrix now, and
yeah,
Magic sets come out once a month. It's insane.
I never thought I would get tired of spoiler season, but here I am.
It's always spoiler
Because
season.
it is literally my job to keep up with everything that's being released, and I have to know the cars that are being released, and I have to know the day they are released, because if a spoiler comes out, I assure you, someone is going to walk up to me and say, what do you think of this card? And if I say, oh, I'm sorry, I was away from the internet today, I didn't look at it, people walk away, look like, what a heck. Heh, look at look at this guy, and that's what he does for a living. And I know
This
most
guy's
people
not a
doesn't.
professional.
This guy's not a
He doesn't
professional
know
at
doesn't know
all.
that card from Lord of the Rings, that common, he doesn't know.
Yeah, and it is a very real thing because, well, what do you care about the opinion of regular Joe? Literally, this has happened of me going to a LGS to negotiate a contract, and while I'm on the Uber to get there, a new card comes out. I'm absolutely unaware. As I walk into the store, where again I'm going to negotiate because I want to be an influencer for the store because I know a guy who knows his magic, and everyone's talking about the new card that just came out. I have no idea what's going on. What impression am I giving out? Right. So at the end of the day, this impression of what the heck, this guy doesn't know, and it's a big poser. I wonder if he even plays Magic. That can be your client, and well,
Yeah.
my girlfriend complains about me overworking because I'm never on vacation, but at the same time I'm always on vacation. And then because she's a lawyer, she works in a courthouse, so she has a regular 9 to 5 job that every now and then she has to bring homework, and then when she has vacation, she's on vacation, and then we travel somewhere, and she's like, and I'm on the phone, and she's like, "What you doing?" Well, I'm just looking at the new spoilers, and I'm replying to some comments on YouTube. Well, if I were working on my vacations, I wouldn't hear the end of it. And
Yeah,
I can't argue that because, yeah, sure, she has a 9 to 5 job and I don't. But still, it's vacation. We should be off. But I'm never off. I can never afford to be off. If I were to ignore Magic for a month, heck, I stopped reading. I've stopped reading MTG lore after Dominaria, and I was very big on lore. I enjoyed it a ton. I stopped reading it after Dominaria because I didn't like mostly the format it started coming out. And I know I've lost jobs because of this, because I have no idea what's going on, and I don't know what happened to Alesh Norn. I know she's a big bad and died,
yes,
and I guess she died. I'm not sure. I saw a card of Khan holding her head, so I assume she died, but who knows? And I have
yeah,
lost jobs because what do you mean you don't know about the lore? And well, yeah, I've got to focus. There's a limited amount of hours during the day, and either I focus on the lore or the cards or the mechanics or the gameplay, or I do my taxes. And I want to tell you, there's a pile of dirty dishes on my sink about yay high that I'm looking for the time to get to them. So something gotta give. When you have a release schedule that's so tight as it is right now, I just can't keep in touch with everything all the time. And I'm sure people hearing this are going to like, I can keep up because I like Magic very much and I can keep up with all the release scheduling.
that's right.
Yeah,
How dare you talk about
yeah,
the work involved to
I'm
keep
sure
up
you
with
can.
Magic?
Congratulations for you. But eventually some set's going to come out that you're not really interested in, or maybe you're busy with something else.
Hmm.
My for heck,
I think what people have to understand is that as a Magic player or Magic consumer, you have the luxury of selectively choosing what things you are interested in. Wizards and Hasbro creates different products for different demographics of players.
yeah,
If I don't care about Commander, then I don't have to keep track of all the new legends. Just to use a very trivial example. But if I'm a content creator, I literally have to know about every single thing. I have to know about the lore. I have to know about the card mechanics. I have to know about every set, beginner or expert or everything in between. I have to know some wizards policy that they stop MSRP on the products. Like I have to know everything. I also have to figure out how to deliver value to my community. In your case, it's Brazilian Magic or Portuguese speaking Magic community. There's a kind of responsibility that as an individual who is just enjoying Magic for enjoying Magic, it is very difficult to relate that to someone who is just selectively enjoying, right?
yeah. Well, the simple fact is, if you're doing this for fun, you keep up with everything because you choose to. If you're doing this for a
Right.
job, it doesn't matter if it really doesn't matter if you like it or not. You have to keep up with it.
It's your job.
And again, I'm not saying this is less fun than working a desk
Right.
job, but it's not
No,
all.
we're just talking
always,
about the
yeah,
realities, which
exactly.
I think it's good. It's good to talk about it, to be factual, right?
Yeah.
As you said, let's talk based on facts. How do you avoid burning out as a content creator?
That's a very good question.
Have you come close to burning out?
I have come very close to burning out. Actually, as a matter of fact, there's content that I've stopped doing because of burnout. I used to do a huge 27 or 30-hour live stream commenting. Since the channel was born out of set release, the reason why the video channel started was reviewing the new released sets. I never wanted to stop doing that, and I'd always do come on, now I do video. It's about an hour uh, for each caller, and then I started doing it live streaming on Twitch, and then I would spend my entire Saturday because to make a 6 hour live stream, it does not take 6 hours of work.
It's a ton of work.
It's incredible how long it takes for people to realize that. But I don't know, like the new Avengers movie is 2.5 hours long. It took more than 2.5 hours to make it.
It did not. take 2 hours to make
exactly.
it.
So if oh, but it's only 6 hours live stream. I gotta change
Just
it.
turn on the camera and just talk. What's so hard about this?
Yeah, exactly. And the camera, and you really think the camera is set up on the right spot and the right framing, the microphones are ready, everything is perfectly ready. Sure, you believe that. So I used to do it, and I would spend literally 30-ish hours around the pre-release without sleep, without stopping to eat, without nothing, just. And when it was 3 times a year, sure, I would do that with a smile on my face. It was a big event because we have a
every once in a while you have an all-nighter, you have
Yeah.
a deadline project. It's kind of like one of those, right?
And then it started being monthly, and I'm like, holy shit! Again already? I haven't even cleaned up after last time. So I started doing and then I stopped doing it. The community complained about me stopping doing it, and then I changed a bit to make it as a charity thing. I put up a monetary deadline. So I gotta get $1,000. I gotta get 2,000, 6,000, however many $1,000. But I'm not keeping that money. That all goes to charity. The charity is announced beforehand, and if we hit that benchmark, then there's a set analysis. If we don't, we don't. And even then, this year I haven't been able to do one because my co-host started working on her master's degree, and suddenly she doesn't have Saturdays anymore. She doesn't have the free time to do this, and I got a bunch of trips throughout the beginning of the year, I was in Peru for when I would do the set review for Lord of the Rings that just came out. I don't know. I'm sorry for dating your video. I was in Peru for the last set release, so I didn't do this charity review because when it happens 3 times a year, it's an event. When it happens every month, it's like it's routine. So then other stuff start being more important, and I guess it's just not worth it to. Oh, why would I change my entire schedule to make this analysis? There's going to be another one next month. Come on.
Is there an aspect of guilt to this? Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but you did mention kind of the heritage of your channel where your content started on the set reviews, and maybe there's some sort of, maybe guilt is too strong a word, maybe there's some feeling of obligation or some feeling of responsibility. Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it is exactly that. But at the same time, I completely agree with you. Guilt is too strong a word. But I do feel that I'm indebted to my public. People come to me and say, "Hey, why? Where's the set? Where's the analysis
people
for
want
this
this,
set?
right?
What
Yeah.
happened?" and I'm like, I've been doing the same thing for 9 years now, the same thing, the same way, and it stopped being fun a while ago, and now it's not only not fun, it's kind of grating. So doing it for charity gave it a breath of fresh air because it's no longer something I'm just doing because I think it's fun and I think it's cool. But hey, it's a sacrifice I'm doing to help someone else, to help those in need, and to but it's still every single month. I suggest this to everyone. Try. Think that's nothing. Choose, I don't know, first weekend of the month. You don't sleep during the first weekend of the month. You don't sleep and you don't eat. Try that. See how long before it starts being fun. You can do whatever you want. You can watch a movie. You can read a book. You can play video games. You're just no sleep and no eating for the first weekend of every month. See how long before that stops being fun.
The no sleep challenge. You heard it here first. Don't try that. Do not try this at home. Anyone listening or watching this, do not. That was a joke. So you mentioned the charity stream.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other things that you're doing in recent years to keep things fun and fresh for yourself? Because it sounds like part of being consistent and having a routine is, I think this is a topic that I don't think gets talked about enough. As a content creator, you kind of have to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, for various reasons.
Yeah.
How do you do that, but still keep things fresh and interesting for yourself?
I'll say even more. I call this the curse of the content creator, because people come to your channel because you do a thing. So if you stop doing the thing, then the reason why they came to your channel is no longer true. You don't do the thing anymore. But if you keep doing the thing, then your content gets stale, because come on, the guy only does the same thing. It's like watching the dog do the same trick over and over and over. It gets boring. So it is a very delicate balance. My secret, my triumph on this is, since I don't speak about just one thing, it's easier for me to discreetly try new stuff without being completely torn down by the public. I mean, can you imagine if a gameplay channel suddenly stops, Magic gameplay channel, if they stop doing gameplays, if they, oh no, now we're going to talk about the history of video games. What the hell? I came here for Magic gameplay. What? Why is this talk? I don't care about the history of video games. What's this guy talking about? And off they go. Since I'm a variety channel, it's easier for me to try new stuff, but it's every now and then I get burned. I try new stuff, I invest on new stuff, and it doesn't pay out, or the public doesn't like it, and it's you just gotta.
You mean just not getting the validation in terms of the views, impressions, or feedback?
Exactly. The views are king, right? If I do the thing, whatever the thing is, you got to do the thing that gets you views.
It's the lifeblood of being on YouTube.
Yeah. But at the same time, well, here I was just talking about this. I know for a fact I can just make up fake stories and do make personal attacks on company employees for companies that I don't like. I know I didn't like Diablo 4 very much. I guess I can make a video saying how the chief manager of Blizzard kicked my dog or something. Nobody who cares if it's true. I want to get the views. Yeah, but if I do that, I'm digging my own grave, right? Because I'm burning a bridge with the company. I'm showing to the public a face that's not who I am. I'm being very hateful for no good reason. I'm going to surround myself with hateful people, which isn't good. So I just tried to slightly deviate from what I'm doing. Instead of doing something completely different, right? I've had tons of success talking about the history of Magic and how it came to be and how it built so well. Now I've been trying to talk about Flesh and Blood from the perspective of a new player. I picked up the game and I think it's a ton of fun, so I kind of mention it. And the numbers aren't as good as Magic, but they're definitely better than what the numbers were when I started doing Magic. I very much enjoy travel vlogs, travelogues. So I've been trying to do those, but I do them with a Magic twist. I've been, for a little over a year now, I've been traveling throughout Brazil and talking about this. I call this series Brasil para Nerds, Brazil for Nerds. So I go to all the touristic spots in Brazil, and like, I went to Rio. I went to Rio de Janeiro, famous Rio de Janeiro. I didn't went to the beach. I didn't go to Copacabana. I didn't see the Christ statue. I was like, okay, I'm gonna look for game stores, board games, arcades, retro games, RPG, try to get with the community, try to talk to people. So, hey, what was it like being a nerd here in Rio? Because it's famous for all the beaches and stuff. Yeah, okay. I don't care about no damn beaches.
There's other videos for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and this is being kind of a mixed bag. The results don't justify their costs, but the personal satisfaction of traveling throughout my country and knowing people and seeing and learning how they feel and getting immersed in local culture, because Brazil is a huge place. We were discussing before recording about the difference in Portuguese from Brazil or from Portugal or from other places. There are differences, there are language differences within the country, and they're not few or far between. The culture on the south of Brazil and the culture in the north of Brazil are vastly different. So it's been very fulfilling to go. Since I don't have a desk job anymore, since I work with the internet, I can pick up and leave and go and see.
Yes.
It is extremely fulfilling to be able to immerse myself in the culture of my country as a whole and being able to say, oh, but in this state, people think like this and this and this, and on this other state, magic stores work like this because of this and that. And this self fulfillment ends up, it's so refreshing that even though it is financially a bad plan, I spend way more money on this than I get out of it. It gives me ideas and freshens up thoughts and fights the burnout, which is how I got to answer this. It's kind of gives a new perspective to the whole thing.
This is great to hear. And what about the other types of videos on your channel? For example, you've done, I think some videos, they look like they perform quite well historically, right?
Yep.
On other games, not just Flesh and Blood, not just CCGs, but video games, board games. You've done a number of these. So what's your process for deciding to do one of these? Because it takes quite a lot of work actually to I see the work that goes into it. So how do you decide that? You know, whether to do a Diablo 4 video, a Dominion video, whatever that is.
Honestly, it's a mix of random luck and a crapshoot. Every now and then I want to sit down and
That's the scientific answer we're looking for.
Yeah.
How to be successful on YouTube.
Be
It's
lucky.
just throw your dice into the casino.
it's like this. I still live my life, right? And it's not like, I swear to God, I don't pretend to be a nerd because it gets you all the chicks. That is not what's going on here. Okay. I'm not pretending. It it is true. I am a fat balding man with a beard who likes video games. This is not a character. So I just live my life and I play games and I go out with friends and I see movies and I chat, I talk to my friends, and from this things come up. So I've got there's this script that's been bouncing around my head for more than a couple of years now from a discussion I had with a friend in which he out of the blue, we were out drinking and the guy comes out and said, you know what? Furries are the new punks. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? No, think about it. Because you see, the punk movement in the 70s was a counterculture, and whatever everyone thought was repulsive, they thought it was cool and pretty. So they would dress up in weird ways and do weird stuff that the normal society would think is repulsive, but it was just their freedom of expression. But now, 40 years later, all the old punks are very conservative, but we have the furries, which dress in this way that normal society thinks is repulsive, and they do their stuff that really doesn't harm anyone, but people think it's the most disgusting thing ever, and they just do it because they think it's fun. And ever since I had I'm like, oh, that's actually a very good point. Huh. And for a couple of years now, I've had this thing bouncing on my head, like I should sit down and read more about punk history and furry history, and so that's how videos come out, chatting and playing, and or maybe I'll
Right.
play in a video game. I was watching when I watched Don't Look Up, and I distinctly remember how I was like, huh, this feels like a newly written form of Brazil. Brazil was a movie written in 1985 about how the government is a bunch of incompetent bureaucrats who can do anything right. And Don't Look Up is a
Right.
movie written in 2022 about how the government is a bunch of incompetent bureaucrats who can get anything right. It's interesting. I could,
There are parallels,
yeah,
for sure.
and I have a file of notes. Whenever I think of this, I jot it down. And eventually I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to write a video on this. And then I sit down and take a couple of days researching the subject, and then I make the script, and off goes the video. So if I were, and this kind of less,
So let's say that you do end up doing that. You make a video essay on why furries are the new punks, which is actually a really interesting idea, by the way. I don't know if anyone's ever done it. Would you release this on your YouTube
yeah,
channel, or would you have to do it Or do you have to do another
Nope,
channel
nope, nope.
because it's not on brand?
I have again variety channel. That's my secret weapon. I would absolutely release this on my regular channel, and the odds are either it would be a smashing success, or I would have 1,000 comments saying, "What the hell does this have to do with the channel? Were you drunk?"
Yeah.
So if you look at the channel, I've got videos like the history of the Boy Scout who made a nuclear reactor on his backyard. Because I learned of this story, and that's an actual story. That's something that actually happened. And I'm like, wow, wow, this kid, wow, that's such a dumb idea. But it's
Hmm.
the kid built a nuclear reactor, so he's got to be pretty smart. And then he did
Yeah.
it with duct tape on his mother's backyard, which is monumentally stupid. So I'm like, you know what? It's a fun story, and people enjoyed
Sure.
it. And there are other stories that didn't, kind of like, yeah, the nice try, but whatever. So I'll just live my life and take note of interesting things, interesting occurrences. Maybe a game will sometimes something clicks, and you're just playing and you're chatting with your friends, and someone says a funny quip, and like, that's there's something there. I take note of it, and eventually when I'm drawing a blank, oh my god, what do I do a video about? Then I get my file. Oh yeah, this one. I want to do this one now.
Just take inspiration from whatever's going on in your life, right? Or
Exactly.
just
If
conversations.
and it is interesting because if I were either the sort of person who lives completely obsessed about YouTube and on the internet, and I would not have inspiration to do videos. On the other hand, if I went back to being who I was 4 years ago, and I was just this guy who has his job and his life and does these videos on Saturdays, again, I would not have these ideas, only by living a nerd. That's why it's called Fazendo Nerdice, doing nerdy stuff. Only by living a nerdy life and doing nerdy stuff, and playing games and chatting to people and having smart discussions with stupid people, and you know exactly what I mean by that. And that's how the ideas come and flow, and you know just keep being nerdy.
What are some goals you might have for your channel? Is it because I know job is a job in the sense that it supports you,
Yeah.
right? For example, if I have a 9 to 5, it's I may not have a long-term goal because it's just a salary. I need it to live. Is that how you think about your YouTube channel, or do you have other goals as well?
Well, this all it all began in a very organic way. I kind of reacted to it. As I said, I started this as a hobby, and then it kind of presented the opportunity to become a job, and it's a very fun job. I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, I did not expect. I don't think if you can see the plaque over here for the 100K subscribers, it was already a huge surprise for me. But I guess the dream is to keep growing. On one hand, I hope I don't have to work for the rest of my life. It would be cool, nice and cool to be able to retire one day, which seems like more and more of a pipe dream the older I get. But I don't have a specific thing based on the way I've been growing, and it's kind of exponential, right? For
Mhm.
3 years, it paid not 3 or 4 years, it paid nothing, and then from years 5 to 7, it paid peanuts, and then from
Mhm.
years 8 to 9, it's been supporting me. And heck, I don't know, maybe in 20 years from now, I'm going to be able to sell this to a big company and go back to just doing what I feel like doing, or maybe I won't, but I will. I have no aspirations of being rich, like filthy rich, like having fuck you money. But
Like you don't need to worry about how much is in your bank account kind of rich, right? Just
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
exactly. Right now, and I understand how rare and comfortable this is. Right now, I can kind of go to a restaurant and not worry too much about how much the dish costs. Right? I'm sure if I try to screw myself over, I'll be able to find a very expensive restaurant. But I go to a regular place just to have lunch. It's fine. I don't care, and I'm very happy with this. I could live like this for however long it is. Uh, but right now, this is predicated on the fact that I keep studying and keep reviewing and keep working and keep doing stuff. I guess the dream would be getting to a point in which I don't have to. Now, it's not that if I don't have to, I'll stop doing it, but it's that very fun difference we've discussed very lengthily about the difference between I do it because I like to versus I do it because that's where my money comes from.
I like to versus I have
Yeah,
to.
exactly.
And it's a subtle thing in your mind, right? But I think even your mind knowing that I don't have to do it makes you happier,
Yeah,
makes you
yeah,
gives you more freedom,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
But I have to dig into this because maybe this is a leading question. Can you see yourself just lying on the beach and doing nothing? Let's say that you were a billionaire, or you could pay people to manage your money or your resources for you. You don't have obligations. Could you just sit on the beach and just sit there?
Personally, no.
Lie on the beach.
Personally, no, because I don't like beaches. But I could sit.
Okay. Insert
Okay,
insert
yeah, yeah.
activity in which you
The mountain, the
do no
countryside.
work.
No, not.
Play Magic. I don't know what
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is. Yeah,
exactly.
play
No,
video
not
games.
no, not at all, not at all. I admit sometimes I wish I could just run away from the internet and spend a week or two traveling. Go somewhere remote and. But please note, I said a week or two.
Right.
If I were to retire, so to speak, and oh no, but now I'm going to sit down and not use the internet for the next 20 years. Oh my god, I'd shoot myself right then and there. Yeah,
That's not being a nerd. That's also very countercultural, I
yeah,
think. It'd be
exactly,
very hard.
exactly. I like what I do very much. I do not see myself not wanting to play video games and board games and RPG and watching movies and cartoons and no, that's never gonna happen. But it would be nice, like right now. It happened a couple times actually. So I got a very bad sore throat and I couldn't speak. That wreaked havoc. That you see if I what if I get if I get the flu and then I'm bedridden for 2 days? Well, that's going to ruin me. That's a very expensive thing to happen. What happens if here's the thing, as a content creator, you make money if you make content. So I'm right now I live in terror. This is something that never bothered me before because I would have health insurance, life insurance, so what and what insurance. But right now, if I'm in a car crash and I'm in the
If you
hospital,
can't speak, you cannot do
no,
something.
I'm in the
What
hospital
would
for
it
two
be?
weeks, which isn't even a very bad crash. Come on, like I don't know, broke a leg and like in your observation for a week in the hospital. That's going to make a big dent on my finances. That would make me not be so sure. I mean, I have an ass tag for what if something happens, but at the same time, what if something happens? I've made very long videos. I've made once a 3 hour long video, and at the end of the video, I could barely speak. And then I get thinking, wow, what if I hurt my throat and I cannot speak for very long anymore? That would make there's no retirement plan for content creation. So um, I don't think I would ever voluntarily stop doing this stuff, but it would be very nice to know, hey, there's this thing that if for any reason you're unable to do this stuff, you won't have to, I don't know, go back to working a desk job on a company you don't particularly like, doing stuff you don't particularly like with people you don't particularly like, because it's either that or starvation, you know?
Do you think there could be a world? I don't know how close this is to the future, but could there be a future where the game of content is completely changed? Let's say that you cannot speak because you're in a car accident or something happened, but could there be some sort of technology or AI that could create the content for you? Basically, knowing what Elba wants, or maybe you just telling it what you want, and it would just go and do it in your style. I know that sounds a little bit like science fiction, but it like, and maybe even having enough wealth would allow you to do that with humans, right? If you have a team that's like, hey, I paid these 5 people and they can create things in my style. I can just tell them like this is generally what I want. I don't know if it's humans or machines, but do you think that day could be
I
coming?
think that already exists, and we already know what happens when that happens. Are you familiar with the workings of Mr. Charles Schulz? Good old Peanuts
I am
comics.
not.
Of course you are. Peanuts.
Oh,
Snoopy.
Peanuts. Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I didn't think about that, Schultz.
No, but
Sure.
but the,
What
but
what but what
that's
about
the
it?
thing. The man hasn't written anything for like 20 years now. I don't think his
Ah, I see. It's all been outsourced to a creative
exactly,
team.
and the same thing happened with Garfield from Jim Davis. We are Garfield. Garfield is a perfect example of this because he did that. Jim Davis, he
Mhm.
outsourced it, and he got writers and he got artists, and he trained them to draw in his style and to write in his style. And what happened is that enough people still purchase and read the Garfield comics so that Jim Davis and his family never had to worry about money. But for most people who were really real Garfield fans, it just feels artificial. It's not the same. And I'm saying about Garfield or Peanuts, but I could talk about so many other media properties. We already have a world in exactly what you said. I can hire a team of people to do my job in my style, the way I like it, and probably it would be good enough for me to continue earning my revenue. But personally, I really hope to God I never have to do this because, oh my God, to become a shell of oneself.
Mm. So there's still some sort of principle or conviction that would hold you back, even
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
had the
I mean,
resources.
honestly, I've said this more than once. Like when people, if I were fully on, I need to make money on YouTube. I would not be talking about magic and video games. I'll be making again. I'm a psychologist. I've worked with children. I've worked. I would be making kiddie content and very annoying songs to entertain toddlers, and that's where
Like Teletubbies, children's YouTube,
yeah, yeah,
I hear is
children's
huge.
YouTube.
Yeah.
There's tons of money in that, but at the same time, if I were willing to do something that I don't like just because it gives me more money, instead of having a YouTube channel, I would look for a job in a bank. That's
Mm.
exactly so that's why, and I absolutely sure I could go to law school or something and try to get a career and make tons of money. I don't want tons of money. I'm very happy. Again, for me, I think it's like peak life goals. The fact that I can walk into a restaurant and order my lunch and not look at at what it costs. It's fine. It's great. It's the coolest thing ever. I don't need to go to a 3 Michelin star restaurant and do this just because I can, you know? Well, I couldn't in a 3-star Michelin restaurant, but you get the point. This thing, I don't want to have a Ferrari. I don't want to buy helicopters and a mansion. I don't want none of that. I'm very. I mean, I could use a little bigger apartment. I've been sharing my bed with a copy of Gutenberg, which is a board game, and it's not even that I particularly enjoy that board game. It's just that I don't have anywhere else to put it. So I guess I could have a little bigger apartment, but I don't want to be filthy rich. I'm very happy at the level of wealth I am right now, especially with how much fun I have doing what I have to keep this level of wealth. So I would not, I definitely would not do something I don't like just because it's going to give me more money.
Is that the goal of life for you, is to be happy or to have a certain level of happiness?
I think as long as you're happy, everything is just peachy. I don't have children. I do not wish to have children. I have friends and family, and I'm very happy with that. I'm not very much worried about, and I understand this is something of a concern on my parents' generation. Oh, you have to leave stuff for your children because when you die, they're going to inherit houses and possessions. And I don't expect to leave anything for anyone. I have my stuff for my own life, and I think that's the one that's important. I gotta live my life, not prepare my life to improve someone else's. I both my parents are alive, and I hope they stay alive as long as they can. Right, and that's it. I don't think I should live my life. I do think it is a waste of a life for you to dedicate yourself to the accumulation of wealth for no practical reason. Yes, money is important. Yes, of course, it buys comfort, but it comes to a certain it comes to a certain point. I was having this discussion, and now I'm going to use US dollars. I was having this discussion with an acquaintance that makes roughly $10,000 a month on her job, and she was fighting tooth and nail and fighting family and burning bridges because she's really desperate to get this promotion to another job that pays $12,000. And like, the hell you're doing, lady? Honestly, what is this thing that you can do with 12,000 per month that you can't with 10?
Hmm.
It's not like you're going to buy a helicopter because now you got a $2,000 raise. And so what's the point? Oh, but you see, because if I get this new job after 60 years of compound interest, well invested, and then I'm going to be able to buy a very fancy house. You're really planning stuff for 60 years from now? I mean, I mean, I guess you do you, but
Hmm.
60 years from now, if I do anything other than rot, I will consider myself a very lucky man. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it to burn yourself just to make more money. I guess you get to the point in which you're comfortable, and that's kind of it. Why squabble over the small stuff? I'd rather get a high score. I don't even like getting high scores in video games. I don't like Pac-Man and Space Invaders just fighting for the high score. Why would I fight to get the high score in my bank account?
Are you an atheist? Are you spiritual? How would you describe your belief
Oh,
system?
I'm an atheist. I'm a very, very convict atheist. My my immediate family, my mother and father, they never cared much for religion. I grew in a home. I don't think they're atheists. They just don't care. I never had any spiritual education. I've studied tons of religion for philosophical purposes because I like to understand where people are coming, what they're thinking, and why that comes from. I have on the greater family, like when you getting grandmothers and uncles and aunts, then there are a couple religious people, but I'm still not from a very religious family. So no, I'm a very practical guy.
So you believe that whatever happens on in this lifetime stays in this lifetime. It's just like when I rot, that's it. I guess to use
Well,
your expression.
I don't know if this makes me agnostic, but the way I see it is either that's it, and when I'm gone, or it isn't. But if it isn't, I'm damn I'm sure your bank account balance isn't what's gonna make whatever, you know.
That's for sure. Yeah, I think that's one thing we know.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I don't know if something's gonna happen, but I'm willing to bet any
you're
mortal
not
soul
gonna
I
be able to
have
take
that your bank
your
account balance
Bitcoin
isn't it.
or your dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah,
no. So I do my
or
best to
your
be a nice
house.
person. I try to be well liked. I try to be polite to everyone. I try to be nice. But so I hope that's enough. But if we're going by bank accounts, no, that can't be it. And if that's it, well,
Mm.
then screw it. Like I'm not playing this game.
Changing topics a little bit. I want to also go into this. Can you tell me a bit about Brazilian Magic or Brazil Magic community? Because for many people that are watching or listening to this, even myself, we don't know a lot about this region of the world. I mean, I guess the most famous player to have come out of Brazil is definitely Paulo Vitor Damo da
Yep.
Rosa, but that's one person. So other than hearing about how magic cards are extremely expensive in Brazil, which is something I've heard in the past, import and things like that, how would you describe the magic community there?
Now, I more than a few people are going to be mad at me for saying this, but I do believe the magic community in Brazil likes complaining more than they should. And
Is that a cultural
it is a
thing or
cultural
it's a
thing. It is
magic
a cultural
thing?
thing. Brazil is a very complaining country. Things. I'm not saying we're a perfect country. That's just a long mile, but
Well, you tell me what country's
yeah,
perfect.
exactly.
I'll go there.
I'll move there. Don't get me. But see, no. Here's the thing. Um, we call this the mutt complex. You know, like mutt, like a dog without a breed. We call this a mutt complex. It's for so long we've been the third world country that everyone else was better than us, and I'm talking about as country age goes. Okay, for in the past 500 years, for so many of these 500 years, we've been the colony, the country that looks up to others, the bad place, that we kind of got used to this culturally. So it is very common. In Brazil, we have socialized healthcare. There's free healthcare for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're Brazilian, if you're a tourist, if you're done. If you got an issue, you go to like pretty much everywhere. There's like this healthcare posts, and you go there, and you can get vaccinated. You can get broken bone mended, whatever. And still, many people here will wish they had the quality of healthcare that they have in the USA. Like, I have had the opportunity of crash a car in the USA. I do not wish the quality of healthcare on the USA on my worst enemy. Oh, but here in Brazil, the free healthcare, it takes so long, and they're so poor, and they don't treat you nicely. If you want to be treated quickly and by a professional who treats you, pampers you, you have to pay for it. Well, yeah, that's still better than not being treated at all unless you can pay for it. And that's just one of course now. Of course, that is my opinion itself by myself. I like traveling a lot. I've traveled all through the world, and I see many people. I've seen so many people who live in São Paulo, same city as I do, saying, "Oh, the subway in São Paulo is so bad. I wish we had subway just like France." Have you ever been to France? No. That's why you think that. That's the precise reason you think their subway is so much better than ours. Sure, it's older, sure, it's more classic, but and that kind of extends to magic. I've for many years now I've argued that magic cards really aren't all that more expensive here. A booster pack here in Brazil costs roughly $6, and it costs roughly $5 in the US, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's
Is that also based on the income
now when we
disparity
go
or
to
as a
income
benchmark?
disparity now, there's a point I agree with. The minimum wage in Brazil, Magic is a very elitist game here in Brazil. Okay, the minimum wage in Brazil right now is roughly 250 US dollars per month. So
Hmm.
when you're making $250 per month, it's absurd for you to spend $50 in a pre-built commander deck. Of course, makes no sense, no economical sense whatsoever. I assure you, no one who is feeding their family on $250 US per month gives a rat's butt about the price of Magic the Gathering. Those people have other much more pressing concerns in their life.
Right.
The people who play Magic and this, I make legacy content, and I make the same disclaimer every time. Oh my god, I got this new cool deck that you can build for only 300 US dollars. And like, yes, I am aware that, and this is an actual figure. 84% of our population is living with less than $400 per month. In a country in which 84% of the population makes under $400 per month, you cannot call a $300 deck budget. However, when you're talking about with magic, competitive Magic players, people who play Modern, Pioneer, Legacy, see the age, then yeah, 300 US dollars is not
That is absolutely a budget deck for Legacy. I can tell you that for
exactly. So
100%.
there's this dichotomy. Magic is an expensive game everywhere, but in Brazil it is very elitist, and that's kind of why Pauper is so popular here. I do believe, I do ignoring Commander as far as competitive formats go. I honestly believe that Pauper is the most popular format here. It is financially accessible compared to the others, but it's still an expensive game because, well, we're talking about feeding your family with $200. Even if the deck costs $20, that's 10% of your monthly budget. There's no way to call that cheap.
I think people need to consider the funnel, right? The funnel of people that come into Magic the Gathering is not that person that makes $250 a month.
Exactly.
So there's already a pre-selection, just like those who subscribe to your channel are not going to be of a certain demographic. And
Exactly.
there's really no arguing whether that's right or wrong. It's just factual. Like, so you cannot evaluate something on a completely different lens than the demographic that's playing the game in the first place. Like, that's just creating a false argument,
Yeah.
I think.
Now, within Magic players in Brazil, you are going to find the person who maybe there's this kid and he's not wanting for anything. His parents can feed him and clothe him and it's fine. But maybe he's got his first job and he got his $300 per month or $250 per month, but that's just for his fun time. He lives
Right.
with his parents and he doesn't have to pay rent or pay for food or pay for anything. And then he's going to take this $200 and spend it on Magic. But then
Yeah.
he's going to be like,
That is a valid argument. That's basically like you have entertainment income or budget. Are you going to spend it on Magic versus a video game versus going to a movie? Like that is a
yep.
valid argument. What you do with your disposable income. Yeah.
And then, but therein comes the culture that Brazil is famous for its beaches. Like internationally speaking, Brazil is famous for its beaches, and throughout traveling Brazil and looking and meeting people, I've been seeing that the places that do have beaches kind of focus around them. So you kind of get these players. There are many people, even Magic players, who are going to think, well, I do have the money. I could spend $100 on my commander deck, but then I could also go to the beach and that's free. You know,
Yeah.
and within the Magic players, you're going to find like doctors or heirs or like people with tons of money. I do not enjoy the company of the saying my deck is more expensive than your car. That's that's so gaudy, and you will find people like this, and at the same time you also are going to find what I would call regular people, people who have a job, who have families, who don't have infinite money to spend on Magic, but they complain about the rising prices. Uh, Magic has become much more expensive here in Brazil on the past during the past 5 years, but the U.S. dollar, has become much more expensive in Brazil in the past 5 years. There's no dissociation from those two things. And then you're going to find people like me who've been playing since forever, and they just have cards because they weren't expensive back then. They weren't particularly expensive. I bought my original dual lands with lunch money, and I just hang on to them for 20 something years. Um, but the community is very very well knit. I'm going to compare now with my experiences in the US. I went to the in 2014. I spent a month in New York to play Magic. There was going to be a GP in New Jersey. I said, you know what? I'm going to play the GP in New Jersey, and I'm going to go to the stores and meet people and trade cards. So I did just like I do in Brazil. Oh, I found the address of a store, so I got a binder full of cards for trade, and I got a deck to play, and I walk into the store and like, hey, how are you doing? Do you want to trade some cards? And I was surprised when the guy said no. Well, maybe this guy is worried about something else. Hey, what about you? Would you like to trade something? Nah, thanks. Well, okay, I guess maybe this store is downtown, maybe some other store. And I found out in the US, and this is definitely not a jab at the US, but I found out that people in stores in the US are much less likely to readily accept newcomers. Here in Brazil, anyone can walk into any store, and if there are people playing Magic, you can, hey, can I sit down and play? Yeah, sure. You get the next one. We finish up this pod, and you get in the next one. Want to trade some cards? Sure, let's trade some cards. Wow, cool card. Want to sell it? Yeah, sure, I'll sell it. Hey, look, I got anything here. I got this card. Do you think I can get anything for it? Well, maybe, I don't want it. I'll see if he wants, but maybe you can sell it to the store themselves. It is a very, it's a community center. Magic stores are community
Yeah,
centers here in Brazil,
it's
and
very
it's
social.
very,
Yes.
it's usually very welcoming. Of course, there are exceptions. There are bad stores anywhere in the world, but usually, especially the biggest stores in the country, you are very welcome to get there. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that I don't feel welcome when I went to stores in other places, but I've been to stores in the US, in the UK, in Germany, in Italy,
Hmm.
and in all of them, it's more business like. You know,
Mm.
I'm not going to trade cards with a stranger. We are in a store. If you want to buy or sell cards, you should talk to the store. He's the guy, the clerk is the only person here who's going to buy, sell, or trade cards. If you
Hmm.
walk in there, well, maybe there's a tournament, and then the tournaments are very clearly marked, and there's a schedule for them, and you will know of them beforehand, and you will um, what's the word I'm looking for? Enroll yourself on the register
Register.
for the tournament, and then you show up the time, and then you play with those people. And maybe if you do that over and over and over, you will become acquainted with them, and then maybe you guys are going to
Right.
chat outside of, maybe you're going to chat outside of Magic. Here in Brazil, come on, dude, you're in a Magic store, and
Yeah, I just welcome you.
yeah,
Come
yeah,
on.
exactly. It's like
Let's go grab a drink
the more
after.
the
Yeah.
merrier. And this is a very Latino thing, really.
Yeah.
This is
Hmm.
not just Brazil. I've been to Magic stores in Chile, and it's the
Hmm.
exact same thing. Chile and Peru, the exact same thing. Welcoming, and when I say welcoming, I'm not saying that the store is going to roll over a red carpet for you to come in. Please, Mister, please, Master, come this way, Master. It's just that you're automatically one of the guys. You got
Yeah.
there, you're one of the guys. You play Magic as well. I don't even care what language you speak. That's it. Let's go. I've made friends who don't speak Portuguese in Magic stores in Brazil, and I couldn't
Yeah.
make friends in Magic stores in the US or the UK, and I don't think
Hmm.
I have an issue with English, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying,
It's
hmm?
definitely
Yeah,
cultural, right?
exactly, exactly.
Like it's just cultural,
We say
and
here
that
that
bleeds into
Europeans are
LGS.
kind
Yeah.
of that Europeans and Americans are more distant.
Aloof maybe is the term I will use because like so I've also had the the luck of or privilege of playing Magic in many different countries. So I live in
Mhm.
China now. I grew up in Canada. I've definitely traveled many times in the US. I played in not Latin America, South America, but I definitely played in Europe, played in
Mhm.
Asia, played in Japan, and it's very distinct. But it's not just Magic. I feel like growing up like as a Canadian, even going to like I guess we call it soccer in North America, but it's really football. Going to rock concerts, music concerts. Like if you go with friends who are from South American, it's just a different vibe. Like I remember going to a Red Hot Chili Peppers show in Canada with a South American friend, but we were all just like drinking and hugging and like just having a great time. And it's so different from when I go with you know, someone who is a white guy in Canada or even an Asian guy in Canada go to the same
Oh,
concert. It's even when I go to concerts with different people with different cultural groups in the same country, I feel it's different. It's
it is.
just a different vibe, and it's just it's not right or wrong, but it's just it's definitely there. And at first, even when I was younger, I was even kind of surprised, like, oh wow, like people are so warm, like of a that have a South American or Brazilian background, and I was a little bit taken back, but then after a while, you kind of understand, like, okay, there's it's just cultural to hug, to
Yeah,
kiss,
it is.
to do certain things,
It is.
and that has to transcend to everything, not just Magic. So
It exactly. That is very much it. And at the same time, when we get something else, magic. I kind of feel that magic in the US and Europe has always been like a game. Well, it's one of many. That we got so
yeah,
many
it's a
games, and
choice.
yeah, I
Yeah.
choose to play Magic. Here in Brazil, it's like let's talk about early '90s. We didn't have diddly squat. Okay, um, we got the all these games are American, right? And until 1992, it was forbidden to import entertainment into Brazil. There's even a very interesting story how Nintendo was kind of forced into Brazil because
Mm.
in the late 80s, a Brazilian company reached out to Nintendo to start selling their products here. They refused. So the company said, well, so we're just going to pirate the NES. Because, I mean, since you're not interested in looking at Brazil, what you're going to do? You don't have a lawyer
Yeah.
here. Well, so it kind of forced their hand. And ever since this ended in 1992. In 92, the frontiers were opened and borders were opened, and now people can import whatever. Well, whatever. Mostly whatever. But we didn't have the card game. Our card game boom of the 90s was Magic and Spellfire, and that's it. A Pokemon came down later in the.
Oh, I remember Spellfire. It was the Dungeons and Dragons card game, right?
But that's the thing. For you, it's oh yeah, I remember that. It was that card game? No, we had two card games. It
It
was Magic
was
and Spellfire.
it
That
was
was
a
it.
footnote, but in Brazil, it was like one of the two dominant
Yeah.
games for
And
CCGs.
and then later Pokemon came up, and then Yu-Gi-Oh came up, and we've had a couple others, but it's not like it was in the US that you had stores with
You had a million
yeah
games, and
billions of
Magic was
different
just
games.
one of
And no,
them.
no, no, no. We had huh, back in the early '90s. There was
It's more
Magic and
exclusive, right?
Spellfire, and then we had Dungeons and Dragons and GURPS, and that was pretty much it. That was the nerd stuff.
Hmm.
And so it kind of is the thing until early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. We had two pre-releases in the entirety of the country. There was one in, sorry, three. It was one in Rio de Janeiro, one in São Paulo, and one in Rio Grande do Sul.
Hmm.
Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, they're kind of close. It's like 4 hours by car. You can drive there. But Rio Grande do Sul is like 2 or 3 days driving,
Right.
and that was it. So, for example, the pre-release back then was a huge deal because it was the official tournament. Okay, it's made by Wizards
Mm-hmm.
of the Coast, so it's a big deal because it's done by Wizards. It's not some random store that's giving out prizes. It's Wizards, and people would can you believe people would practice for pre-release? They would get geared up. People would schedule their trips to come
Yes.
cross the
This is
country.
like the rap battle in the final scene of 8 Mile, but the Magic edition.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had a GP in 1997, which I was in Rio, so I have no idea what it was like. And after that, we kind of got blanked. I believe pre-releases started becoming common ground around Kamigawa, the first Kamigawa,
Mm.
2003, maybe 2002, and then WPN started reaching here, and stores could easily, not really easily, but more easier than it used to be, schedule their own pre-releases, and then we started actually getting tournaments. Um, when we got our GP, I believe it was 2006 that we started getting GPs in Brazil kind of regularly, and then between 2006, I won't say 16, maybe it was 15, 2015 and 2019, we got yearly GPs, sometimes even more than once a year. But throughout the years, we kind of felt like we do our own thing with Magic, and Wizard kind of doesn't look at us. And then Wizard opens up an office here in Brazil in either 2015 or 16, and then they started. You said that's when GP started. Yeah, that's when the GP started, and we started getting promotional card. We didn't. Oh my god! I remember Arena. People in the US are going to old people in the US are going to remember Arena because you would play on a store and you would get prizes if you played weekly. And in Brazil, this was a huge thing because you had to write a letter through mail to send it to the US, and then the Wizards of the Coast would eventually get back to you with your prizes. And sometimes it would be mangled on the mail. So it was a very poor relation with Wizards during the formative years of Magic.
Right.
So when Wizards opens an office in Brazil in 2015 or 16, I apologize, I don't remember the exact year. There's kind of a resistance because we've been doing stuff our own way. We've got people
Mm-hmm.
like PV and Viliedel, also another big player here, and we got big stores. Well, after at this point, Magic's like nearly 20 years old. Um, we have one very old store from 1994 that's still working
Oh, wow.
to this day.
Incredible.
But the biggest stores in the country started in 2001. Well, so at 2015, they're like 15-year-old stores, and they already got their stuff going. We got independent tournaments, we got independent circuits, and then Wizard comes along, and now they're trying to take over what we've built. What do you mean they're trying to take over?
So there's got to be resistance to that. Yeah.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. It's not that they were actually trying to take over. It's just that I haven't played.
Trying to insert themselves into
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
finally.
And I haven't played Magic in the early 90s outside of Brazil, but back in the 90s, Magic was a game for boys, for white boys, for white boys with money. Sorry, one asterisk. In Brazil, when I say white, it's not just Caucasian, it's just not black. Okay, so it's the game for rich white boys, and it's back in the 90s here. It was very toxic, very chauvinistic, and this is where the big stores come from. So even though they know that it makes no commercial sense for them to promote toxicity, that's kind of where they come from.
It's the history. Can't deny that. That's the history.
Yeah, exactly.
And Magic was marketed globally that way.
Yep.
For young white boys. It's a fact. Look at the old marketing videos, the ads. Look at the artwork. Like, it's 100%.
Absolutely. But when Wizard comes along in 2015 and they're trying to tell stores, hey, listen, you cannot. Um, that's a good one. You have to have bathrooms in your stores. What? Who are you to say I have what I have to have in my stores? I'm Wizard of the fucking Coast. I own this game. Well, what if I don't put a bathroom? What if I don't have a bathroom in my store? Then I won't sell Magic to you anymore.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
They have, was it WPN, or they have
yeah.
like premium store requirements and all that
Exactly.
too. Yes.
So so it's a two double-bladed knife. They bring more events and promo cards and their programs to Brazil, and at the same time they disturb the status quo for better or for worse. And I do believe the game improved a lot. The community around the game improved a lot during this time. The stores became more professionalized. They became more comfortable. Heck, I know people who changed from water to wine since then. I know people who owned stores in the early 2000s who were insufferable assholes. And nowadays, I've walked up to them and said, you know what? Back in the early 2000s, I would fight you on the street. You were that much of an asshole. But nowadays, you're a decent person. Because it wasn't necessarily a point of malice. People didn't want to be assholes. It's just the way we were brought up. And some people took this interference of Wizards as growth, and some took it as an attack. The issue is people who made money with the way things were. And that's where tons of the complaining happens. We've got some key figures in the community, and it's not that I'm not naming them because I'm afraid of naming them, it's just because there are so many of them. We're talking about a history of 20 years of people making money off of an unregulated market without the IP owner looking into it. We've got people who built their empire on this, and they made millions, literally millions and millions of dollars off of selling cards and making local circuits and tournament circuits and exploring new players, and they didn't like that. So when Wizard does stuff like, hey, here in Brazil we have the GP, we're gonna have a GP now in Brazil, yay! Then these people go online and like, well, yeah, but in the USA the GP is much better because you got all the artists. Well, okay, so next year we got artists. We're going to bring you guys wanted artists for the GPs. We're gonna bring artists to the GPs. Well, yeah, but you're only bringing the artists nobody knows, like the big famous artists. They only go to the American GPs, and whatever it is that Wizards did in Brazil, there will be this small but very extremely vocal group and financially powerful group, which would diminish anything. And since these people are so influent, it would affect the community, and so the community would diminish the efforts of Wizards. It came to the point. The professor from TCC, he came to a GP here a couple years ago. Well, more than a couple years ago. It's been a while since we've had GPs, and he sat down and talked to people, and he made a video about it in which he says, "Oh yeah, the content producers in Brazil, they feel left out because Wizards doesn't recognize them." And I'm watching that and I'm like, dude, 3 months ago the community manager from Wizards rounded us up after the GP and took us out on a pizza party on the company's dime, on her company's dime, and she thanked us for all the content we produce, and individually thanked each one of us, gave us a bunch of boosters, and paid us dinner and thanked us profusely. Yeah, I know it's just a pizza party, but that is being recognized.
But it's the gesture that counts.
Exactly.
Sure.
It's like, what the hell? We're just making YouTube videos because we want to. Nobody's asked us to do this. We're just doing the stuff we want, and they took us to a pizza party and gave us a bunch of boosters. If that's not being recognized, what the hell did you expect to happen? You wanted to get a wheelbarrow of gold? So that's where I come from when I say that we complain a lot as a country on Magic. And then I do believe these things are related. After so many years and the pandemic and everything, and I'm sure they've got their reasons for their stuff as well. Wizards up and left. So they've left Brazil, I believe, in March of this year, March of 2023, and then it was. There's no arguing how that's a good thing, right? It's they closed the office, all the employees here were fired, and that's it. No, I don't
What's
know.
the reason behind that? Was it just bad business commercial performance in the region, or
Have you ever tried to get information out of Wizards of the Coast?
I have worked with wizards in some capacities in the past, and the only thing I will say is that it's not even about transparency. It's more just sometimes the left hand does not talk to the right hand.
Yep. But the thing is, and then the left hand takes a decision, and here you are sitting on the right pinky, and you have no idea, and you're never going to find out exactly what happened. So
Yeah.
I don't know the entirety of the thing. I do believe the South American market must not make them much money. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business. So I guess maybe there's more stuff than that. But I guess we just didn't make enough money for it to be worth their while. And I have no idea what if there's any relation, but here in South America, we don't buy product directly from Wizards. Wizards sells to local distributors, and we buy from the local distributors. Less than a month after Wizards of the Coast left Brazil, all the distributors doubled the prices on our product. And
Oh wow.
and it was like, oh, okay, who are you going to complain to? Cool.
Well, there's no governing body, so
Exactly.
back to the free market.
Yep, exactly. Ever since Wizards left, it's funny because I don't even think most people realize how these things have been happening because Wizards left. We haven't received promo cards since Wizards left. Some bigger vendors have been traveling to the US to get promo cards in the US to bring back to Brazil, but those funky 30-year anniversary cards that are in multiple languages, all
Yeah, the
foils.
promos.
They didn't get here much. No. Also, there's one thing is Magic in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Rio Grande do Sul, which are 3 states out of 24. Another thing entirely is Magic outside of these 3 states, and that's much harder to come by. I don't think there's any state in which we don't have Magic in at all. Like you can find Magic anywhere in Brazil. But what qualifies? There are more than a few places that you look and you think, how did this qualify as WPN? I went to Tocantins. I didn't go, but I was researching Tocantins, a state in northern Brazil, and there is one place that sells Magic in the entire state, and it's a newsstand. Remember newsstands that they sell papers and magazines?
Yep.
Yeah, they have one of those, and it sells Magic as well. Yeah. So we vary very much. You're going to find Bazar de Bagdá, Epic Game, the big stores in Brazil, in the big centers, in the commercial centers of the country, which are São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. For some reason, which I don't know, something that happened in the early 90s, there's also tons of Magic in the southern of the country, in Rio Grande do Sul. But most of the country, it's small stores, people selling to their friends, newsstands, and that's kind of it. It's kind of a miracle it works, really.
Is the current state of paper Magic still fairly healthy and growing in Brazil, or have people moved into online play or just other hobbies entirely?
That's a very good question, because when what you consider healthy and growing and what Brazil considers healthy and growing might not be the same health and growth.
Let's use your standards
Okay.
because I don't want to assume that we look at everything through
Oh,
a
but
North American
that's
lens.
the thing. Um, what we have now is, I would say, it's even bigger than what we had in 2018. The pandemic made Magic grow a ton, and Magic Arena brought in a bunch of new players. But you know what? The kids, especially teenagers, they play Magic Arena, and well, they play Magic Arena, okay? And either they love it or they, you know what? All my friends are playing, and I'll play it as well. The kids who are playing because all their friends are playing, yeah, that's it. That's just arena. But the kids who really love it, once they learn what you can play this with real cards sitting right across from people, oh my god, that's so cool. And they go to stores and they learn to play and they start playing. So we've got a huge influx of players from Magic Arena. But I don't think what we consider a huge influx of players is even a blip on the radar of Wizards of the Coast. I know some people who own stores in the US, and I know some people who work in distributors, and I know for a fact there are stores in the US, individual stores in the US, that buy more product than the entire country of Brazil. So it's it's a matter of scale, you see. I actually live I actually currently I live in São Paulo, but I am from Pernambuco in the northeast Brazil. And in my hometown, people would be thrilled to get 15 people on a Friday night playing. Here in São Paulo, it's very common to, in any given Friday, you have 4 or 5 different stores with 30 people playing in each. And I just realized how I'm saying, yeah, 5 stores with 30 people playing in each. Like, that's very impressive. But yeah, that's the reality in Brazil.
It's all relative, sure.
Exactly. For most of the country, you don't get 5 stores with 30 people each. You can get one
Mm-hmm.
store, 2 stores. They might have 20 players. That's what Friday night looks like in Brazil. What really moves product here is playing Commander at your friend's house. You're going to you know someone. Heck, I know
The
plenty,
real kitchen table magic.
old kitchen table
Yes.
magic. You know the old thing they say. Oh yeah, the most played format is sit down and play whatever you are. That's Brazil. That's reality. You okay nowadays? No, it's less whatever you have and more Commander. But I know plenty of people who don't go to stores, who have no interest in organized play, in competitive play. They just built a commander deck because their group of friends started playing and said, you know what, this looks fun. I'll join and I'll spot the $40 or $50 or whatever dollars it costs for a deck, and I'm going to get into this and let's get to it. And they play I've met people who play in their office, after hours or during lunch. I've met people who play in schools after hours or during lunch. I've met people who play on friends' house and they meet, or maybe let's get everyone together and we go to a beautiful farm on the countryside to to wake up early and look at uh, the sunrise while playing Commander.
Yep.
So that's
Or maybe at the beach. I don't know. Just wherever you can combine
yeah,
magic with something
exactly.
else.
It's much more people playing by themselves than actual organized play. And since we have distribution here, we have distributors that, for better or for worse, for whatever the price they're charging. I mean, if they double the price and people are still buying, from a purely business administration point of view, if they double the price and people are still buying, clearly that's the right price. They were underselling it before. And if people are buying from the distributors and playing by themselves without the interference of Wizards of the Coast, again, from a purely administrative point of view, maybe it makes business sense for them to skedaddle out of the country. It sucks. As a player, it sucks. As someone who doesn't get promos anymore, it sucks. As someone who liked GPs and Magic Cons and Magic Fests and all that stuff, yeah, all that sucks. But if you look at it from a purely let's make money point of view, it starts to make sense, as bad as it is.
Right. Is there an efficient market? Like, for example, could somebody decide to just start taking back to Brazil tons and tons of product without opening an LGS, sell it for less, undercut the local players? And is there that kind of dynamic
If
happening, or
no,
are
no,
people
no.
just entrenched in the
If you
LGSs?
try to go through the borders with like a suitcase of sealed product, you would have a bad time.
Okay,
Um,
you'll get stopped.
of course, it's not that people don't do it. It's just that people who do it
You can't do it on a large scale
exactly
or a decent scale.
eventually we've had people get arrested, store owners getting arrested here for doing precisely that. Because when you buy in bulk, it is noticeably cheaper in the US. I do believe it was in 2017 was one Modern Masters that had
Hmm.
a I don't remember the year. It was the biggest sealed event ever in the GP Vegas. Was one Modern Masters, and people were bringing suitcases, literal suitcases filled with cards, to the point that the border patrol had specific ordinances on how to recognize.
To watch out for
Yeah,
magic
yeah.
cards.
Which is,
Are there things happening in terms of the
but
efficient arbitrage situations like singles? You know, there are
I
people.
personally know people who bought their apartment with the money they made from dual lens they bought from Europe, because dual lens in Europe are much cheaper than they are in Brazil. So the guy traveled frequently to Europe for work, and whenever he went there, he'd buy like 4 to 8, and that's not gonna blip in. Because here's the thing: it is not forbidden to bring magic to Brazil. It is forbidden as a physical. I don't know if this is a difference that exists in other countries, but in Brazilian legal ordinance, there's a difference between physical persons and legal persons. It is not a crime for physical people to bring a product into Brazil, but if you bring so much product clearly that you clearly have the intent to sell, like for example a pallet of the same product, the whole thing, you have to be a legal person. You have to be a company to be allowed to do that.
Legal
Legal
entity,
entity.
sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And if you bring a couple cards, like a deck box of cards, they're not going to look at each individual card to ascertain the value. It's just that if you bring a suitcase full of cards, I don't even care what these cards are. You got a suitcase of them. You clearly,
It's going to set the alarm.
exactly,
Yeah.
clearly that's a commercial endeavor. You have to pay taxes on. Fun thing, Magic is tax free in Brazil. Uh, there's long legal battle. There are no import taxes on Magic if you bring it as a legal entity. So I know people who, throughout many travels to Europe, would buy a couple dual lanes over there, get over here, sell them, save the money. Did that, I don't know, 20 times per year for 2 or 3 years, and bought a kick-ass penthouse. So yeah,
Yeah.
arbitrage is a thing here. It is the prices are very similar for standard product. Recently released cards cost about the same here or abroad, but for old cards, there's quite a difference in price.
So for Eternal cards and maybe for some older Commander style
Oh
cards,
yeah, oh yeah. Old reserved list, power 9, dual lands, candelabra, tabernacle, all this. Well, they're expensive
all
outside
the
of
stuff
Brazil
that
as
I
well, but
love.
they're very, very expensive here.
I want to end this conversation. There's a ton, but I want to end this with just one or two questions.
Sure.
Tell me the inside story of how you created the Anson Maddocks interview. I know you're proud of
Yeah.
having that conversation. I went and watched the
Yep.
video, and it was one of the few videos I could actually understand because it was in
Yeah.
English. And that was a very interesting conversation. I'll share the link in the show notes as well. But it was fascinating because Anson Maddocks was, first of all, he's one of the OGs of Magic art,
Yep.
but also he was very candid. He was very candid in that interview
Yeah.
about how he felt Wizards treated artists, especially in the context of M30 and things like that. I felt like that. It's kind of a leading question, but I felt like that interview was a labor of love for you. it was a labor of love to conduct, to research, to do the thing. It's not the type of content you normally do compared to everything else. So tell me the story of how that came into existence.
I am friends with Alper from the YouTube channel Concepts and Legends, and his thing is interviewing artists, and he's very well connected among artists. And I do a eventual podcast with him. With I'm about as regular as I can be, but at one point I was just chatting with him, and I offhandedly mentioned, "Oh yeah, no, Anson Maddocks is one of my favorite cards. I really like the art on Animate That. That's a kick-ass." He's like, "Really? Anson Maddocks is your favorite artist?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess he is. I didn't really put much thought in it, but if he's not my favorite artist, he's definitely one of my favorite artists." Well, I know him. Would you like to chat with him? Like, what? Really? And this was right during the time of Magic 30, and I was very avidly following the discussion on multiple artists came out when Magic 30 came out, complaining that Wizards didn't pay them for the art. And this is when this happened. I'm like, hold up, you know the man? Yeah, I know him. I got his contact right here. He's not very good with email, but I can get in touch with him. Like, I would absolutely love to get, because that's first-hand information on what's going on with Magic 30, on whether they were paid, whether they were not paid, how he feels they were treated. This would be incredible. So, and Alper absolutely came through. The guy, this is not the first Magic artist I've spoken through him, but it was a privilege to be able to chat with Anson Maddocks. As you said, so candidly, he was like, Anson is done with Wizards bullshit. Pardon my French, and he made no effort to hide this. He was angry at them. He was saddened with them, and he wanted to vent. And then that's what we were discussing roughly 2 hours ago. It's one thing to complain and about how you're feeling and do actually critique and say, listen, I do not like this because this and this and this. It's another thing to just personally attack. But the guy has been personally affected, right? So even if he's very annoyed, very justifiably so, personally annoyed, personally angry with the situation, he handled it like a gentleman. He complains about Wizards, not about people at Wizards doing things. And
Right.
I was very happy, and I will be forever thankful for Alper for making this interview possible.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, that was my wife just came in. Sorry for an interruption. But yeah, I felt like Anson Maddocks conducted himself quite well because it wasn't really sure. I mean, you could see it as a rant or a venting, but there were legitimate reasons for him to talk about it that way because and it's built through years and years and decades of history. So it wasn't just like he woke up today and decided I'm going to complain.
Yeah, it wasn't. Just, oh no, Wizards is the worst. They're bad company and they stink. No, it's like, okay, I had a contract that stated this.
Here are the receipts. Here's what has actually happened.
I had the contract that said this, and they did that. That's not cool, dude. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I also love the part where he said, "Yeah, I don't really need the money, like, to be really honest, but it's like I just wanted to speak about these issues because I know other artists might be affected, and I thought it was coming from a factual and an honest place. So I really enjoyed that, and I'm glad the world has that interview. It's better to have that interview than to not have that interview. That's what I will say.
Absolutely. I was very happy to talk to him. I'm with you. He was transparent. He does not he's not worried if Wizards never hires him again. And as Leon said, he doesn't need the money. It's just he feels he's been done wrong, and they shouldn't be able to do this.
It's worth speaking out on. Yes. Yeah. I thought that was a really great encapsulation of the ethos of your channel, which is it's not about sure, we all have complaints. We all have ways to vent about magic or the way the business of magic is being done, but there are different ways to do that. You could have a talking head video where you just where you just complain about M30, or you could actually have like, here's the business side of it and here's another way to look at it, which is beyond just me buying the pack for $300 or whatever. There are other ways to do something interesting and to do something different and to come from an authentic place while you're doing it. That's not just about feeding the algorithm. So I really I really respect that. And I know this is crossing the line as an interviewer, but I feel like I like that sort of content. And also as an interviewer, I like interviews. So that's basically what I watch. So
Oh,
yeah.
thanks a ton. Again, I feel like I repeat myself, but I was very proud to be able to do that and bring that.
My other question for you is, you have a signature word that you open every video with. What is that word and how did you come up with it?
You are not going to believe it, but the word is "Hola," which literally means hello.
But it's the way you do it. You do it so actually there were a few videos where you did it on purpose, not cheerfully, but
Yep,
there's always a
yep.
kind of
Um,
consistent cheer, right? So
it's just waving. It's the first video I did. I said, okay, I have to start this video. How do I start this conversation? How do you start a conversation with a stranger? Hello, hello.
yeah.
Back then, I used to live in my father's house, and it was a much bigger place than this one. So I had the space to set up the camera on a tripod, and this is an absolute Vsauce reference. I would crouch under the camera and start the camera by jumping up and saying hello. So that's the reason for the left hand, the raised hand is just waving. But as I was jumping, and the other hand's like this because I'm jumping up. And when I
Right.
moved here, I literally cannot fit myself in this chair, in this camera, in this computer, and still have room to crouch and move freely. So I stopped jumping up, but I kept the hello. It is, and it's the funniest thing because I am amazed how often people ask me, "What is up with that hello? Why do you say hello?" I'm like, I'm just starting conversation with strangers. Is the hello not a thing you say? Yeah, yeah, but what about the sign you do with your hands? It's just like waving, like hello,
Well, it's
how
very
are you doing?
distinctive.
Yeah,
It's good.
I guess it is, and it kind of became a catchphrase. And I'm like, well, if I knew this was gonna work out, so I guess I would have given it more thought, make something more with a meaning for the channel. Or no, no, I swear to God, I'm just saying hello.
That's great. It's kind of reminds me of when I sometimes I ask creators like, how did you come up with your creator
Hmm.
name? And I'm always assuming there's some sort of like massive calculation behind it, but it was just like, oh, that was my screen name when I was 12 years old and I was playing Diablo and whatever, right? There's always like just some sort of thing, and then they didn't expect this name would stick because later they, survivorship bias, they
Yeah,
made it, and so your Ola is also just something you started with, right?
oddly enough, the name it does mean something. Elba is not my actual name. When I started with the channel, I used to work in a car company, and Brazilian law states it is quite expensive to fire an employee in Brazil unless he commits one of 10 faults. And one of these faults is the regular practice of gambling. And this does not have to be during business hours. If a company can prove that an employee is involved with gambling, he can be terminated at nearly no cost. And the company in which again I was HR, the company for what it was a factory, a car factory, for which I was in HR, and they were specifically cracking down on gambling. They were chasing and trying to find and terminate gambling employees. Now you and I both know that magic isn't gambling, but by the time I would explain this to a higher up, no bueno. I'll be already out on the street, especially given my
Mm-hmm.
position. So I started using the pseudonym instead of my real name, kind of as a way to
Mm.
hide my identity. And I've left this company in 2014 or 15, so there's no
Mm-hmm.
good reason for me to hide my identity anymore. But by then there's the whole mystique about, oh, what is his name, what's him called, and I don't make a huge effort to hide my real name, but there's enough people who complain and ask and wonder, and every now and then I get an email or a Twitter comment asking about my name. What is your real name? Why do you hide? Oh my god, I found your name. Oh my god, people are so happy. And yes, I found your name. I knew it. And like, I don't want to ruin the fun for everyone, and I just kept hiding it.
Okay, so this is your pen name, your
Yep,
pseudonym. This is something that you want to have a little bit of separation from your real life
my
name.
civilian name. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna come up with a cooler story, like I killed somebody named Elba, and then I took his identity and face. Oh no, I'm just kidding. This
Well,
is
now
that would be very
that's something
that'd be
else.
like coming out of a fantasy
Well, now
novel.
that's something else because very few people in this earth know why Elba, and that is something I actually try to make sure stays that way.
Okay, all right. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's good to have for a person to have their secrets.
Yeah.
It's not. We don't need to share 100% of everything. We don't need to tell people we're going to the bathroom. We don't need to know who we are behind
Yep.
Elba. We also don't need to tell people your family name or your real name. There needs I think it's good to have some
Yep.
separation, right?
Yep. There's even a safety concern as well, right? Like people. I recently saw the case of a guy who traveled 700 miles to set fire on a streamer's car. And like, okay, first of all,
That's a little
yeah,
crazy, yeah.
absolutely
But there are
crazy
crazy
asshole.
people.
But number two, wait a second, you're a streamer and you make your address in your car public? That's that does not sound like.
You're just asking to be
No,
doxxed. Yes.
I'm not saying the streamer's at fault here. I'm not blaming the streamer. Maybe they were doxxed. But
Oh no, I'm not saying they deserve it. I'm saying a lot of crazy shit can
yeah,
happen
yeah,
on the
exactly.
internet. Yeah.
Like address and car. Don't tell strangers that.
Have you ever been have you ever had like a stalker or just like a weird parasocial or social interaction with somebody?
I've had quite a few weird parasocial interactions, but I'm kind of jaded about it. I never had anything very serious. It is quite common because of the style of video I do, long videos, long form, talking head, really going deep. It is not unusual for people to know me and treat me as one of their friends, and I have no idea who this human being is. I just smile and go along with it. However, I come from a background of HR for big corporations. I'm. You ever seen Office Space?
Oh, absolutely. It's a classic.
Well, yeah, that was me. I was the guy who'd come in and do the downsizing. So
My appreciation for Office Space and The Office has increased over the years as I've worked more and more in corporate. I now
yep, yep,
understand the real jokes behind it.
exactly.
Yes.
Once I was literally hired to. It was a temp job. I was hired to go into an office by the harbor to tell the employees that their health benefits were being cut, but I had to frame it as if it were good news, and that was a job. Um, what
It's good for you. Yes, we it's good for you that we increased the price of all Magic product. This will allow you to fill in the blank.
exactly? At this time, I remember I went there and I gave the news. When I come back to my car, there's a traffic cone stuck through my windshield.
Yeah.
So, so I this isn't a challenge by any means, But the regular stalker parasocial weirdos I meet on the internet, up until now, again, this is not a challenge. Up until now, they haven't they haven't
Still not
yeah, yeah, they're
the
still not
comb through the
as
windshield
much
level.
as
Yeah.
regular people whose lives were being actually screwed over by corporations, and I was just the voice. So
Hmm.
no, not nothing comes to mind. I have more stories about corporate stalking than internet stalking. So I was good.
Yeah, the occupational hazards of the job.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe one day you'll be so big that people will travel how many miles to set fire to your car? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be joking
Well,
about this. That's when you know you've made it. You know,
yeah. I hope. As I said, I'm very happy never having a follower online. That,
when someone makes a video where the thumbnail is like an X through your face and says this man ruined Brazilian magic, that's when you
oh
know
yeah,
you've
that I
done
would
it.
laugh about. Yeah, yeah, no, no. As long as people are talking shit about me online, I could not care less. I laugh. I think it's funny. Yeah, it's fine. It's cool. I would be very worried if somebody, like I'm leaving my house and there's someone with a big stick outside, like, hey, you Elba? I got a beef with you. Yeah, no, that's a little bit too much.
Actually, no, Elba's my twin brother. He lives over there. I just look like him.
Yeah.
YouTube? What's YouTube? I don't know what that is.
Exactly.
And then you go next door, quickly shave, come back without the beard. It's like, who is Elba? I have no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with me. I hope people listening to it have a little bit more appreciation for what you do, but also a little bit more understanding about Brazilian
Well,
magic.
thank you very much for having me. This has been a blast. It's always good. I'm very happy to talk about what magic is here in Brazil because I feel it's not only PV, but we as a country we have such a I don't mean to brag, but I do think we have the best community here. I've been to Europe, I've been to Japan, I've been to the US, and it's nothing like playing Magic here in Brazil. And I wish more people would
So
know.
you're saying magic in Brazil is like football in Brazil. There's nothing like it.
You know what? Yes, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
let's just say that for the record. Why not,
Yep.
right? Yeah, I mean, I think there's a passion that comes through in what you're saying. There's a passion in the community, obviously, and I think the passion for a game like Magic transcends the business interests behind the game. There's a way you need to. There's different ways to look at the game, and I think it does sound like the community is very passionate, loves the game, and so that's important.
Couldn't agree more.